be considered by the board, and cancellation of either one of those dates may impact the budget schedule. So we would ask to consult with the executive office during the lunch recess to be able to come back to you when you consider your consent calendar and any potential changes to that. With regard to planning matters on Monday, on the alternative draft, each month does reflect a kind of a striped circular symbol that would represent planning matters. The differences are, if we adopt the alternative schedule, the casualty of that process will be the board workshop topics, and we'll have challenges with the Board of Equalization business because some of those have already been noticed. But we do have a day set that if you wanted to consider adoption of the alternative, 1 day a month would be allocated, but portions of those days have been pre-committed to other subject matter. On the recommended draft, we do have those dates as well as the twice a month, for the most part, planning matters. And I guess what I would say is generally the regular Tuesdays where we have planning business assigned lends itself to appeals, planning appeals, and more administrative business, where the majority of the Monday special sessions are predominantly going to be allocated for planning team types of initiatives. So I think that we're getting a good blend on the recommended calendar of incorporating board member requests for some planning business on Monday, but also allowing adequate time on select Tuesdays during the month for more of the general administrative appeal types of matters. And with more board meetings this year than last, hopefully that will also, we still would be looking at 3 additional meetings, even if we canceled the July 7th and selected one of the June dates. If we eliminated those 2, we would still be looking at 3 additional regular sessions this year than last that we think would hopefully help with that, particularly that we have 3 in December, and typically we've only had 2 meetings in December due to holiday schedules. So I think the schedule looks as though it will be able to accommodate the board's business at this point.
Well, I understand your point now, seeing the complexity of the codes, the markings at the bottom of the calendar that does reflect planning in more than one arena. We've got 2 little indicators here, so I understand that. Well, my opinion was we could go either way with that. I don't have a strong opinion about it, but I do feel that we need to keep those off-site meetings. I think that 3 is the minimum amount that we ought to consider. We've got a large county, and I think it's very important to take our business on the road, so to speak. I know it's very much appreciated. Members of the public tell me frequently that they appreciate that occasionally we're doing business on the coast, and I think it's important that we take it to the North County, the South County as well, and so I want to support that we keep those 3 off-site meetings in the calendar. Thank you.
As a comment to that, the 3 off-site meetings are included in both the alternate draft and the draft. Any members of the public want to speak on this item? Okay, we'll bring it back. Hopefully we can entertain a motion here.
I'll move adoption of the alternative draft.
I have a motion for the alternative draft. That reflects the elimination of the July 7th meeting.
Yes.
Okay, do I have a second? And a second? Supervisor Brown seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? So carries, unanimous. Okay. Okay, we'll move on to agenda item 8C, discussion and possible approval of board member committee appointments and chair special assignments. Clerk?
And did each of you receive these in your wall pockets this morning? They're the populated draft roster schedules. This year's assignment has been recommended by Supervisor Pinches, and there are 2 additional assignments incorporated this year. One is the traditional appointment of a CSAC member to the Board of Directors. We had done that in November in the past, and that has been carried forward to be this year because of the new board composition. And then there's a secondary CSAC Coastal Committees group that is also being incorporated as a recommendation by the CEO's office. Other than that, I think there's familiarity with the various boards and commissions here, and we'd open it for discussion or action.
I made an attempt to not only to balance the workload, but try to give everybody some sort of the priorities of their interest. It's one note on there, on the Policy Council on Children and Youth, I really feel that that can be handled by staff at some level. I've been to sit on that, and there's enough county department heads and everything said at that. I don't really think it's necessary. You know, any board member can, if they have the time and the will, they can go to that. But I don't really believe that we need to make that a board assignment. So with that, if everybody's had a chance to look this over.
Just to also point out, in the 4 standing committee assignments in the top part of the grid, the chair of the recommended committee is denoted in the bold-faced text.
So, comments from board members? Supervisor Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I think in general that you really put quite a bit of thought into this, and you carried some continuity through, and you did think about the workload, and I think that you did an excellent job trying to divide out the more demanding committee assignments with the interest area of both the existing board members and the incoming board members, and so I think in general, I think it's a very positive alignment that you've created. I had a few comments. I think that they're really rather minor. I believe that we ought to have an alternate for NACO. I think we've had that in the past. Not that that is necessarily that active of a committee that, but I think it's important that we just have an alternate, just like we do in the CSAC scenario. We have both a delegate and an alternate. So I would recommend that we find someone as an alternate for NACO.
Can I stop you on that? Can
Sure.
we have a volunteer for that right now? Because what I'd like to do is vote on this whole package together, if at all possible.
Sure.
So is there any interest in anybody wanting to serve as an alternate on the National Association of Counties?
I could.
Supervisor Brown will put, thank you, Carrie.
And another committee, and I don't think anything that we do today precludes us adding committees or taking other action in the future. So, but a concern that I've had is around the IHSS negotiations and how this is played out in Mendocino County. And I think if we looked at the model that Lake County uses, they have a supervisor that actually sits on an advisory board. And I've asked council to take a look at that, and I think that that's something we ought to consider here. I think it could go a long ways to building a better rapport and a better relationship with the IHSS individuals that are in a unique status, actually. So if council could just comment on what she's done to date on that, I'd like us to at least give that consideration.
Well, I've talked to the county council in Lake County, and on their IHSS advisory board, there is a member of the Board of Supervisors. I haven't had a chance to look at our bylaws, our advisory board bylaws, to see if there is, how we would amend them to include a provision to allow a supervisor to sit on that board. So I'm going to look into it.
So I just wanted to make my colleagues aware that that was an interest I had, and if council will continue to take a look at that and report back, it's something we can talk about in the future. Along those lines, I have had an interest in some time for creating something like a finance committee. I think that it certainly is timely now. I think it would be good if we had the ability for the board to be more actively involved in areas of finance. They certainly do those in city government. Dan Jurdy actually is here from the city of Fort Bragg, and the city of Fort Bragg has a finance committee. I think it would be good for the board to consider such an item and how we might look at revenue enhancements, how we would look at cost-saving measures, how we would deal with all of the sort of idiosyncrasies of and the complexities and the ever-changing environment of finance that's being dealt to us basically by the state